Michael Boyle's StrengthCoach.com presents the Strength Coach Podcast, brought to you by Perform Better, the experts in functional training and rehabilitation. PerformBetter.com.
All right, hey everybody, welcome to episode 356 of the Strength Coach Podcast, brought to you by Perform Better, the experts in functional training and rehabilitation. Check them out at PerformBetter.com. I'm your host, Anthony Randall. The show notes are located at ContinueFit.com or StrengthCoachPodcast.com. All right, today on the StrengthCoach.com and MBSC.TV Coach's Corner, spoke with Coach Boyle about some takeaways from the MBSC seminar. They just had that last weekend and lots of great presenters. Now, if you're a member of MBSC.TV, you're going to be able to see those recordings, so you can check it out there as well. But I spoke to Coach Boyle all about it. Also spoke to him about middle schoolers. He had a tweet on there. Just wanted to ask him about what the challenge is with middle schoolers and how he approaches it. Kind of fitting because we have Jeremy Frisch on today, who is really one of the premier youth training experts in the country, in the industry. So good stuff coming up from Jeremy in a little while as well. Now, don't forget, we did a special interview with Coach Boyle called 40 Mistakes, 40 Years. You can check that out at StrengthCoachPodcast.com. Sign up for the newsletter and you'll have access to that. Now, one thing I will say is the interview with Coach Boyle it's a little hard to hear in terms of Coach Boyle's end because he was in the car. So we went a little bit old school, just had to do that for both of our schedules. For the Hit Gym with the Strength Coach segment, brought to you by Athletic Greens. Guys, don't forget, you can get free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase from Athletic Greens. Go to athleticgreens.com/strengthcoach. Today I have on Jeremy Frisch. He is the performance director at Teamwork Sports Performance, formerly Achieve Performance in Clinton, Mass. We talked all about training youth athletes. Jeremy, like I said before, is considered one of the most knowledgeable coaches in this area. And essentially I asked him, where have we gone wrong? What can we do to fix it? We went over a bunch of things, including some of the things he's doing up at Teamworks Sports Performance. Now, you can check out a past Strength Coach TV episode I did with Jeremy a few years ago up at his facility. At the time, it was called Achieve Performance, but I'll have a link to that in the show notes. You get a great picture of how he operates and some of the things that we were talking about in the interview. All right, and for the Naamly Maximizing the Member Experience with Sumit Seth, the founder of Naamly. Don't forget, Naamly helps you build relationships through personalized communication so your members stay longer and pay longer. Go to Naamly.com, Naamly.com. You can schedule a demo, you get a feel for what it's all about. Use the referral code Strength Coach to get started on a free 30-day trial. Today, Sumi's going to finish up his 2-part series about his timeshare sales experience. So I just love, Sumi just takes real life experiences that he's had and talks about them from the customer experience perspective. And it was a recent trip. He's going to talk, if you listen to the last episode, you'll get the background, but this one, he's talking about the actual sales presentation that he got. So there's some great tips in it about that experience. Guys, right now, Perform Better, the online sale, 50% off a bunch of stuff, including bumper plates, kettlebells, and dumbbells. The one-day seminars continue. Chicago, last one, April 22nd. Then the 3-day functional training summit dates for Orlando, Chicago, Long Beach, and Providence are all set. You can check it all out at PerformBetter.com. Lots of things to get to, so let's get on the phone with Coach Boyle. All right, now it's time for the StrengthCoach.com and MBSC.TV Coach's Corner with Coach Boyle. You can try StrengthCoach.com out for 7 days for free, totally new format. User-friendly, the same great forum as always. Go to StrengthCoach.com for that 7-day free trial. Also, MBSC.TV, they have a free trial. And what's really cool, they just had the spring seminar. Eventually, those are going to come on. You could watch staff lectures there. I just watched a little bit of one. Actually going to have a couple of questions for Coach about that. So, Coach, we're going old school interview in the car here today.
Yes, this is like the old... like my car videos on Instagram. So now we've got car calls. Hopefully you're not going to get too much background noise from the wind.
Yeah, we got a little. It's okay, though. It's okay, as long as we can hear you. Mike, we have on. Actually, no. You know what I want to talk about first? You had this spring seminar. Did you see a couple lectures from on Saturday?
I saw half of Jordan Syatt, and then I saw Dan McGinley and Vinny yesterday. Dan McGinley and Vinny killed theirs yesterday. They're getting so good. All the guys. I didn't get to see Kevin. Mark had lacrosse in the morning, so I was watching lacrosse. So I saw more Sunday than I did Saturday, but the guys that I saw were great.
Cool. Any just like quick takeaways you can give us from that?
Yes, the biggest takeaway from Jordan Syatt, and I never met Jordan. One, it was really funny. You would have laughed because he started off with a video that he sent to me trying to win a copy of Functional Strength Coach 3 when Brian Lee must have had a contest mailing a video of why you should be the winner. So he had this video of him talking to me when he was 19 years old in Israel and talking about why he should win Functional Strength Coach 3. But what he said, the interesting thing is he's developed a great, massive social media following. But one of the things that he talked about was if people are commenting and you're not responding, you're basically a screw up. And I thought, wow, I get some engagement and sometimes I might just, click the little like button or whatever it is. So yesterday I spent time trying to respond to everybody who came to the seminar, even if it was only just saying, hey, thanks for coming. It was great to meet you. But, everybody that posted a picture. So that was my big takeaway.
Yeah, I think with you, it's really hard too, because you're on Twitter. You're engaged pretty heavily on Twitter. And now, you do have strengthcoach.com where you're answering forum questions. And then now to go on another platform and answer, it does get tough. And I have heard that as well. A long time ago, I think Saladino was the first one who I heard talk about it, where he's just saying, yeah, don't just like and don't just put an emoji. Say like 3 or 4, hey, thanks for commenting. I really appreciate it. Or glad you had a good time or whatever. You can make it quick, but it's really hard to get, to really master a couple of platforms, right?
Yes, it is. And that was the other thing, even Jordan had said that himself. He was like, pick one. He said, because it's one of those things where you're thinking, I want to be good at judo, karate, and jiu-jitsu, boxing, when you're thinking, YouTube and Instagram. I like Twitter, but my Instagram following is double what my Twitter following is. So I need to be more attentive to the Instagram part. And it's just a good reminder, even if I don't always do it, it's a good reminder that if you want engagement, then you have to give engagement, right? You're gonna get what you give. If you don't engage people on social media, then you probably won't continue to grow your audience as rapidly as maybe you would like to.
Yeah, Mike, you're also, what I didn't mention as well is you've always been really good about answering emails. So we can throw that in there too. And now you have a whole list of, hey, how do I respond to all these people? But
yeah,
stuff.
But I also think that's why we've been able to build up the followings that we have and do the things that we do, because I have been pretty good at it. But it was that reminder that, wow, you can be, it's the 1% better thing. You can be a little bit better at this than maybe you are right now.
Absolutely. Good stuff. I did see Jenny Rurick's breakdown of his lecture, of Jordan's lecture. So that was up. She did a great job just kind of, putting it in context too. Not everybody will be able to do that. You're somebody who would be able to do a lecture like he would, because it was very casual. Same thing like the dress. It wasn't like, you come to, in a suit and tie. You could always answer questions on the fly. So that format would work well with you. But she said it's a great format, but just to think outside the box a little bit from the traditional, not just using slides, et cetera, et cetera. So she broke it down pretty nice.
In all honesty, it would not be my preferred method of presenting, but he's charismatic enough where he gets away with it. I think you really have to have somebody else kind of put the charisma meter on you and say, hey, can I pull this off?
Yeah. Good call. Coach, we have Jeremy Frisch on today, and obviously Jeremy's known for working with youth athletes and not just athletes, just kids in general. And I was watching one of your staff meetings, and I just kind of want to go over some of the middle schooler idea. You made a joke about, no one really wants to be like, yeah, I had 7 middle school sessions today. I think somebody in the audience, I don't know who that was like, I want it. Yeah. But in general, it's a tough group. What's the challenge? Is it the growth spurts? Is it the variability in the groups? Like what some kids are really athletic, some kids are not. Is it the attention span? What's some of the big challenges working with middle schoolers?
I think it's the attention span. It is the attention span and the maturity, without question. Because and this is one of the reasons I don't love, like we started 11, and I'd really almost rather be 12 or 13 because I think you need, for what we're doing, our model, you need a kid who understands that there's at least a little element of seriousness. You have to listen, and you have to follow directions. And I think that goes really well with getting to the point where you might get cut from a team. And I think that's in that like 12 to 14 kind of age bracket where it's not just fun, show up with your friends and play. It's starting to get a little bit more serious. And for some kids, it gets way too serious too early anyway, but that's another story. But I think it's definitely the maturity aspect of it. And it's hard because the way that we're going to run things, I don't want kids, I hate to say I don't want kids running around having fun, but I don't really want kids running around having fun. I don't want it to look like an unsupervised gym class. And I also, again, my own opinion, and Jeremy, I mean, his stuff, I love it. It's crazy, but it scares me sometimes. He's got kids diving over stuff and rolling, and that makes me nervous. I like things to be much more controlled and organized. And again, maybe that's just me.
Yeah, I think also it's the environment too. You talked about it a long time ago when we talked about why you wouldn't train like a 7 to 10-year-old, right? Based off of the Titleist model and just kind of saying, hey, let's get them in here to move and appreciate the gym or getting them in the habit, right? But like you said, it doesn't mix well always with the older athletes and the adult population. So it's not always about just, hey, what can we do here? But it's in the context, in the lens that we're looking through as well.
Exactly. And I think the one thing for us, because realistically speaking, we started out training really high level athletes who obviously wouldn't be too excited about having young kids running around. And we segued into more adults who also probably wouldn't be really excited about having a lot of young kids running around. So kind of our core audiences probably don't mix well with that, say, 12 and under kind of demographic. So I always felt like if we were going to do that, we'd almost need 2 distinctly separate businesses so that one could run one way and one could run another. And we don't have the capacity the way that we're operating to do that.
Yeah, it does get tough to start to think like, what are we, and we talked about it last episode with Kevin, about this idea of understanding that sometimes the demographic changes, and you talked about the adult athlete and starting to understand all these adults, and they were starting to make up a huge portion of your revenue. And okay, now we have to focus on them, but you can't go after everyone.
Right. And the other thing that's happening was, this is why we were talking about middle school, that's our biggest area of growth. Our after school program, we could probably sell out after school with all middle school groups. There's so much demand. I don't exactly understand why, but there is a huge demand for middle schoolers. And then, again, we get into the whole, somebody tries to slide their kid in who's a year younger. We want to be 11, but we're also doing it grade level because the way middle school is now, a lot of middle schools are 6, 7, 8, and the high schools are 9 through 12. So we've got 6th graders, and sometimes we get 8th graders who don't want to be with 6th graders.
Yeah.
So it is it's an interesting dilemma, and we need to get better, and we are at dealing with the middle school group and figuring out, okay, how do we handle the middle school group? We do things for instance, we've been teaching strength training. We clean twice a week. We bench press twice a week, just to get more repetition of the basics. Whereas with our higher level athlete, if you get the high school kid, you don't want to bench press twice a week because they're going to try to max out, quote unquote, on both days. And so it's like, oh, we'd rather have a bench press day and then a dumbbell incline day, or a bench press day and a close grip day. But we realize with the middle school kids, we really need more repetition of basic skills. We even talk about it, dynamic warm up. If you have to skip 4 times, skip 4 times. You don't have to get to the end of the warm up. We got to get them so that they can skip. And so I think it's good for us because we're always evolving. We're always looking at this and saying, okay, we thought this was the way to do it, but now suddenly for this demographic, the way that we were so sure of before, maybe we're not so sure of right now.
Mike, would you think you might move into, if it got big enough, to be like, okay, this is middle school 1, middle school 2, middle school 3, like different levels? Because if you have 3 years of middle school, you get a kid who comes in 6th grade and he learns all the basic movements. 7th grade, now he's getting a little bit more proficient. 8th grade, might be a kid. I know Dante, the kid, one of the hockey players that I trained, he was playing varsity hockey in 8th grade. So he might not want to be with the 6th and 7th graders lifting with them, and he was super strong. So do you have different levels on these things?
We don't right now, no. But I don't know if we might have to go to 5, 6, 7, 8 in terms of, because we are getting some 5th graders who are, again, same age. So we have not done that yet. We haven't gone. We used to do new athlete groups and returning athlete groups, because now we've got, for whatever reason, I don't understand it, and I'm very happy about it, but we've got some middle school kids who are now coming year round and love it, and because they are a great after school audience, because most of the middle school practices are at night, just because of the way youth sports work. So we don't get high school kids that we can get right after school are going to be just off-season kids, because most of the high school teams do the opposite. They practice right after school. So, yeah, we may have to move to something like that.
Mike, do you think part of is it almost like a tipping point idea where also, okay, you've been working with Marky Boyle now for 6 years, right? 5 years with his group, and then the other kids start to see, holy cow, the whole hockey team is going over to Boyle's. The whole lacrosse team is going over to Boyle's, and these kids, and it's almost like the virus that spreads through. Are you seeing it from from Marky's high school, or is it more just middle school in general?
It's just middle school in general more.
Wow.
And some of those kids are younger brothers of some of these other kids. There is a little bit of that, but they're just, for whatever reason, and there seems to be more interest. And maybe it is middle school kids are getting injured. Middle school girls are tearing their ACL. Middle school boys are having Tommy John surgery. Maybe parents are starting to wise up and realize, wait a second, this is a good idea. I don't know exactly. I always think with us from a business standpoint, I can never quite figure out what the ebb and flow is or why things go the way that they go. But we've gotten to be pretty good at going with the flow. We've gotten to be pretty good at thinking, hey, and Gary's been really good. Gary Burns has been great in terms of, she's like, we need to add more middle school groups. We need to take some of these high school groups out and make them middle school groups, because I have middle school kids on the waiting list, and I have high school groups that are half full. So we're just, in some ways, we're just reacting to the trend.
Yeah, Mike, is Carrie doing how did you hear about us type things with new people when they come in, or, to find out exactly where they might be coming from?
No, that actually is a good question. I don't think we are. No. Part of our problem, if we want to call it a problem, is that because we don't have to market very hard, we probably don't do a lot of conventional marketing things. Like, that would seem like a really good idea. Okay, how did you hear about us? But we will try to do that more with our adults, trying to figure out, okay, where are our personal training clients coming from? Where are our new adults coming from? But I don't think we do it with our middle school kids. So that might be a good thing to just start to add to our intake.
Yeah. Coach, can you just talk about, and I want to stay on this middle schooler for one last question. And you were talking about on-command movement, which I thought was really interesting about, okay, guys, look, when you're with middle schoolers, let's keep away from the on-command movement. Can you just explain really quick for people that wouldn't know what that is? What's on-command movement and why don't we want to use it with middle schoolers?
Mainly because the kids are not that coordinated yet, and you're adding in another variable. So what we started to do as we progress through our movement, it might be stuff like shuffle, stop, go kind of thing, run, stop, back pedal, those types of things. And with the kids that aren't as coordinated, my thing is let's just get the movement skills down. Let's get some kids that can shuffle, and some kids that can karaoke, and some kids that can skip, and not worry about kind of making it look like football practice. Because some of the coaches will get into it like, go, move here, move this way, almost like they're running, mirror drill kind of thing. And I'm like, not with the middle school kids. Because we had a fairly significant wrist fracture with a kid backpedaling the other day. And that stuff's going to happen. Kids are going to fall. But the kids that tend to fall will almost always be the middle school kids. And in most cases, it will be the boys who have gone through big growth spurts and are a little bit less coordinated. Those are going to be the ones that will tend to take a tumble. So it's just a matter of, hey, let's just slow down a little bit and get our movement skills down.
Absolutely. Good stuff. Guys, you could see some of this stuff that when you join MBSC.TV, Coach Boyle was talking all about this in the staff meeting. So, Coach, we're going to let you go. It's been old school. It feels like 2010 here, or 2007, really, in the car, on the phone, coming home from BU, and we're doing it. We're doing the podcast. So thanks so much for taking the call in the car, and we'll talk to you next time.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate you accommodating me. Those of you that are listening, I apologize for the background noise, but we got it done.
Welcome to Naamly's Maximizing the Member Experience segment. My name is Sumit Seth, and I'm the co-founder of Naamly. This is the final part of a two-part segment breaking down my experience of being pitched by a timeshare company to upgrade my status during my recent visit to San Francisco. In part one, I shared how a persistent, personalized follow-up process by Ronnie got me to commit to this 90-minute sales conversation. Today, I'm going to walk you through that sales conversation itself and break down the different components and tactics that were used by Angela, my sales agent, to persuade me to buy. So I received a call, which I missed, and a text message reminding me of the upcoming appointment with the clear direction of coming in at least 10 minutes early to settle in. I liked that. It was taking charge of the conversation and setting the stage. Upon reaching the front desk, I was greeted by a bright and chirpy receptionist who checked me in and offered a choice of coffee, tea, or water as I waited for my sales agent, Angela. Angela showed up 5 minutes later, shook hands with me, and after a brief chit-chat where she exchanged pleasantries and some questions, seeking insights into how my boys' trip was coming along, what we had done so far, what had brought us to town, and where were they hanging out in my absence today. The sales presentation had started even before we sat down. She was in the first stage of building rapport. Upon sitting down, she brought attention to the pictures she had in her cubicle, one showcasing family and how she and I had a lot in common, and another about her escapades to different cities, and finally one more showcasing an award demonstrating her professionalism and expertise. Perfect demonstration of building what I like to call KLT, know, like, and trust. She was so good at this that I had to mentally remind myself that I was not here to upgrade my plan, only to dissect what I could learn from this whole process. She asked me what I had received in exchange for meeting with her today and proceeded to congratulate me on my smart decision of opting for the Alcatraz tour, which could make for an exciting trip for the boys. Mental note to myself, congratulate the prospect and make him feel good. Good job, Angela. Taking a moment to check my account, she inquired as to why I was not using the large number of points I had on file with them. A tough challenge for her to overcome, I thought. I shared that I typically plan two kinds of trips, one done way in advance and centered around my kids' vacation schedule, or last-minute weekend getaways like this present one. I was genuinely curious to see how she would make a compelling case for me to upgrade, considering I was hardly using my current points. This was exciting. She started taking notes and focused on identifying my needs. I noticed that she had discovered and written down 3 key points: property availability, property selection, and something to do with fees. The rest of the presentation, she did a phenomenal job of connecting everything back to those 3 points. She shared that I was not able to get the cities of my choosing because my current timeshare company was a dying brand and they were not investing any new capital to open up new cities. And that's one of the reasons they decided to merge with the new company. However, if I upgraded, I would move to a VIP caterer, which would give me better flexibility and selection. She went on to share how the new company had invested over $100 million in the last few years itself to really focus on their members. And I had this unique opportunity to now upgrade and sign up directly with this new company to truly experience the difference and utilize all my points, which were lying waste. She expertly outlined the benefits of upgrading by helping me understand that in doing so, it would push me to the front of the buffet as opposed to being left with the morsels discarded by other people. And then she pulled a ninja move. She beautifully brought in social proof by showcasing how she has helped so many clients like myself who were not using their points on how to better utilize their investment to make lifelong memories. Now, I can only imagine that my body language suggested that I wasn't interested. So Angela changed tactics and told me that I looked like a smart investor feeding to my ego, and proceeded to explain that I had this unique opportunity to lock in now at low rates and build an asset that I could actually leave for generations to come. At that point, Angela took a pause to ask if I had any questions, what I was thinking. I wasn't really using the system as is, so naturally I was apprehensive. At around that time, her manager came to the desk to indulge me in another conversation. I have no doubt this was a deliberate step in the process. In a quick, short 3-minute span, we went from how upgrading would be the right thing for me to do to an about turn of how I might not even qualify, since I had apparently refused in the past to upgrade. The good cop, bad cop role play was then at display, with my original sales rep, Angela, the good cop, stating that since I was brought into the presentation today, she was confident that she could make the case to corporate to make a one-time exception. For after all, I was invited to the presentation. Whereas the managers, whose name I don't recall, was the bad cop, nodding her head off, her body language, and proceeded to ask me if Angela should go back for me. She drove urgency and pulled the classic takeaway technique to make a decision today. For apparently, if I didn't act today, there's no way I would ever get this opportunity again, for this did seem to be an error. My brain told me that this was to induce FOMO, fear of missing out. Well played, Angela and manager, but not in good taste. I asked them to give me a live demo of the properties and cities I could go to if I wanted a getaway planned in the coming week or two. I rattled off 3 cities in the US and 2 countries, all places where I'm due to travel in the near future. Luckily for me, and unluckily for them, none of the places I mentioned had availability in their portal. At that point, I believe everyone knew that the writing was on the wall. As I reflected on the series of tactics that were employed that day, I realized that the concepts themselves were golden. Building rapport, identifying pain, personalizing the presentation to that pain, and then the not so golden tactics of becoming aggressive, playing the switcheroo to the good cop, bad cop model, inducing FOMO. The one thing that was missed out in this whole shebang was that they really didn't keep my interest and needs in the center. They didn't care about me. They tried to manipulate my needs to get a sale. And right there, they had lost all credibility and the sale. This was such a stark contrast to the interaction I had with the appointment setter, Ronnie, who worked tirelessly to get me into the sales presentation. So while I understand it's indeed a numbers game, if there's one thing I can leave you with, it would be to always put yourself in your client's shoes. Know that you may not close every sales interaction, and that's okay. The prospect may not be a good fit. What is important is for that person to walk out of the presentation and believe that they got to interact with a sound business, one that treats people well and truly puts the customer's need front and center. That way, my friends, you have a walking billboards of people who get to interact with you even if they don't buy from you. This is Sumit Seth, co-founder of Naamly. For more info, please check out naamly.com to schedule a free demo to discover how you could define your own sales process, one that is personalized and also speaks to the reputation you want to build in your community, unlike the one I had. Use the referral code StrengthCoach to get started on a true free 30 days trial, no strings attached. Thank you.
All right, guys, now it's time for the Hit the Gym with the Strength Coach segment, brought to you by AG1 by Athletic Greens, 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens. I use it every day. Mostly right now, I'm using it as kind of a pre-workout, but it really helps me fill the gaps in my nutrition. So they're going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you got to do is go to athleticgreens.com/strengthcoach. Also have a link for that on the show notes. All right. Today I got on Jeremy Frisch, and I've known Jeremy for a long time now. He's an early part of strengthcoach.com. He is the performance director at Teamworks Sports Performance, which, if you've known Jeremy at all, you knew he had achieved performance in Clinton, Mass. And if one really cool complimentary thing to do after listening to this episode is go on Strength Coach TV and look up I'm going to have a link for it when I went and visited Achieve and spent some time with Jeremy, and we had some fun. His kids were there and they were running around, and it was just it was really cool, but there's a purpose behind it. But anyway, we're going to talk all about that. Before he was that he opened Achieve. He was assistant strength and conditioning coach at the College of Holy Cross in Worcester, and he graduated from Worcester as well, majoring in health education. Jared, thanks for doing this, buddy.
Thanks for having me on. I'm excited. It's been a long time since we talked.
Yeah. I think it was really since like right around the time of when I came up there in probably 2018. Geez, 2018 or 19 that we did the Strength Coach TV episode, and so much fun. But I really, wanted to get you back on for a while. I'm glad we're able to do this now. I know we'll probably talk about it a little bit about how Achieve is now Teamworks and what that entailed and what your vision is for that. But let's start off with, there's so much chatter, obviously, around about training kids, youth, training the young athlete, and not just, only athletes, but everybody, all young people. We talk about long-term athletic development, but let's start off with the problem. Where really, because we could say, okay, it's the video games, or it's the lack of gym class. A lot of places have cut gym class. When I was a kid, and I know when you were a kid, because we're old enough, You saw a lot of people playing on their own in the playground. We played every sport, unorganized. We made the rules coming home off the bus, right? So where did we go wrong with all of this? What's the problem right now?
I think it's probably a perfect storm. This is probably, a lot of different reasons why kids are sort of growing up, how do I say, movement deficient, right? I think I had this conversation a few weeks ago, even from birth, you're seeing kids are put in swing sets and not allowed to roll around the playpen, or there's and then there's that sort of you don't want your kid to get hurt, so they made these playgrounds super easy to navigate, whereas years ago they used to be you could run and jump and play and run around, and now they're sort of I guess the word's sterile.
Yeah, they were higher too. Like the monkey bars were higher, right? Things were higher, and kids, because now they're worried about kids falling, right?
Yeah, so everyone's worried about a lawsuit, things like that. Whereas when you had those playgrounds set up like that, and you just kind of let kids go do their thing, they learned how to move better. They took more chances. You know what I mean? And when they took more chances, obviously they did fall sometimes, but they get up, brush themselves off, and then go do it again. And so now they don't even have that chance, because those playgrounds are just not when you see kids running up a slide, they're bored as hell. Right?
Yeah.
Years ago we had slides you wouldn't dare climb up because there'd be kids coming down, but if you fell off or something, you slid back, you were up pretty high. And now the slides are so low, and it's just there's no challenge for the kids to get to move better. And there's also there was a really good book that just came out from the athletic skills model. It was all about physical education, and it talked about how the terrain in the playgrounds now too are old playgrounds had undulating terrain. There was rocks, and there was holes, not holes in the ground, but the ground went up and down. And so you had to navigate that terrain. And as you played on it more and more, you got better and better at it. And now it's just flat, and the ground's probably really soft. They have some type of rubber, flooring, if the kid falls. I think that's part of learning how to move, right? Is that if you could fall on the pavement and cut your knees. And so you're aware of that. And so you come up with solutions not to fall. You know what I mean? Now it's this flat terrain, and it's it's very, like I said, it's very sterile, and the kids are not really challenged movement wise. You know what I mean? So I think just just from the get go, kids aren't, I talk to parents with an infant. It's the doctors tell you to do tummy time, which is the opportunity for a baby to sort of lift their head and move their arms and legs, but they don't push it enough. There should be a lot of time that the kids should be on the ground on their belly, sort of learning how should learn how to move. And, and then they get put in, like I said, they get put in different contraptions where, again, they're constricted, and don't really get a chance to explore their environment. And then moving on, you get to a playground, and then what happens? Two things happen. You get to school, right? You get to school, and then there's hardly any phys ed in very short recess time. So then you're basically, you're in kindergarten or first grade, and you went from being a younger, say you're 4, when you're at home with your parents, you probably get to move around a little bit more than you would in school. And then the other thing starts at that age too, is sports, youth sports. You know what I mean? And it's, I hate to say it, but kids are getting sucked into youth sports, playing one thing, one sport or just a couple sports. They don't really get exposed to a lot of sports, and they go on that track for years. You know what I mean? And not doing. So if you get stuck doing one thing or just a couple things, you don't really expand your movement skill set all that much through the years, and then over time, you're sort of limited in how well you move. So you're seeing that, and then it's. You got a body that's starting to grow. You get into middle school age, then they take recess and phys ed away even more, right? So, and then you're in class longer, and so it's just this kind of perfect storm where the kids just really throughout their lifetime they don't get an opportunity to move the way they should, or be able to be able to explore movement as much as they should.
Yeah, and we look at screen time, and there's that. And I think what's really interesting, and I hate to be the when I was a kid type thing, but my dad was, let's say my dad was probably maybe 40 when I was 12.
Yep.
Okay. And my dad had his own business, and he was really into electronics. So he was, into computers and electronics right early on. And he brought home the first Pong. He brought home Atari.
Yep.
And we found that stuff out from my dad, and he didn't play it really. He just was like, "Oh, here, kids." We had all that stuff. The kids would come in, we would play it, but then we go right back out and we'd be playing street hockey or baseball or, touch football or kill a guy with the ball or half court basketball, whatever it may be. Or, then we made up our own games. So I think to only blame it on technology is another thing. I think when you talked about these kids going into sports, we don't make it fun at all. And I think the playground is where we're missing that fun. My parents never said, I asked them if I could play ice hockey. They didn't push me into football. I didn't play football. I played baseball and I sucked at it, so I didn't want to do it. I just stayed with hockey, right? So nobody said like you gotta play baseball. Everybody played. It wasn't like that. So just can you comment on this idea? Because how many kids do you have?
I got 4.
Yeah. So that's my point about you as well, is you're not just coaching other kids. You're using them as a little experiment, little guinea pigs over there. And I've seen them in action. Man. They just were, man, what a good time we had that day at the Now Teamworks. And but can you just talk about being a parent and what do we do for this idea about all this screen time?
Well, yeah, I think I know for us, from like in our family, and I get it's hard for me because I own a gym, so like all the kids come to the gym, so I know that at night they're going to be on their phone or whatever at night, or playing video games. So like we make sure that they get down the gym. What I try to do is when they were younger is make that experience really fun for them. So that's why like when you came down, all the kids running around, playing games and stuff. It's like when you came that day, that one of my sons was there. Now he's 15 in high school as a sophomore, and he comes down every day to lift weights now. But I think his experience early on, was fun, and then he sort of transitioned, and it happened with him and not with me. He's like, "Oh, Dad, I want to," he probably sees the older kids lift into the, "Dad, I want to learn how to squat like those guys," And so it's been an easy transition for the kids to go into more like exercise based training rather than more like exploration movement type thing. But I think those early years are really important, that we made it fun for them to be able to, enjoy movement and fall in love with moving, and then move on to, as they get more mature, sort of exercise type stuff. So I think for us, it's been great because I know that they even know it too. Like they're going to be on their computer or their phone or playing video games and stuff like that a lot of time. So they get their exercise in either through coming to the gym, and then also they play sports. And like in our family, everyone plays 3 sports no matter what. Like we don't stop. Like, it's so easy to like play, say you're playing baseball, right? You have a really good little league season. It's so easy to be like, all right, we're going to spend the rest of the summer, because they're playing well. All right, we're going to play the rest of the summer doing summer ball. And then like, boom, that thing transitions into fall ball. And then you're doing winter baseball work. You know what I mean? And before you know it, like the years go by and you're a single sport athlete. And we're like, no, like baseball's over. You're going to move on to football or whatever it is that the next season. And like, we cut it short, no matter how much fun we're having and how much potential you think they might have in the future. Like, we're just like, nope, we're going to move on to the next sport the next season. And sometimes it's for me, it's for the parent, it's probably the hard kid playing well in something. You kind of want it to keep going, but I'm just like, really like, nope, you can't just do one thing all the time. So I know, like, so my oldest one right now, he might be he played football, basketball, and now he's starting baseball. he's like one of the few kids in the school that plays all three sports like that. You know what I mean? There's not, most kids do one or two. There's not many kids that still do three. Like, but when I played, everyone did three. Everyone did something. You know what I mean? So, he seems to like it too. So, I told him, you don't have to be super serious in all of them. You can have one that's one or even two like that. You just go for fun. But so I think that's playing multiple sports in the changes of the year. Although it may be hard at first, I think it's really good for them that transition. And obviously, it keeps them active. And there's a whole variety of movements that you get to do from different sports as well. So you become a better athlete overall. So I think mentally and physically, you're benefiting by playing multiple sports.
Yeah. And do you feel like for example, you wrote a thread on youth athletic development, 10 ways to improve athleticism in young athletes. And this was really just off the top of your head, and you just banged them out. And it was. I'll just tell everybody: jumping, sprinting, calisthenics, gymnastics, strength, pickup games, tag, stop playing one sport all year round, screen time, limiting screen time and having fun. So when we look at those, could this be really, could we think of our job as just trying to say, listen, we need to replace the playground. They're not doing it anymore. We need to start thinking about how do we replace that playground?
Right. Yeah, I agree. I think too, like I'm thinking back to my playground, like that I grew up near, like when I was a kid, it wasn't only just like a slide and some monkey bars and a swing and a seesaw, but there was also a basketball court there. There was tennis courts. There was, an open field to play football. So I think too, like what happened was when we were kind of old enough where we got bored with playing on the seesaw or on the swing, we went and started playing pickup hoops or playing tennis or, playing some type of pickup sport on an open field. You know what I mean? So there was like this really great opportunity. And now it's like when you see playgrounds, they're just not built that way. It's like great for maybe, up to 4 or 5 year olds. And then after that, they get bored and it's like there's nothing else available for them. You know what I mean? So,
absolutely.
Yeah. So I think that's one of the things, like you said it too, like I hate to be like when I was a kid, but like that's how it was. And I think we had so many more opportunities to do extra stuff because of the way the environment was set up. And the kids don't get that today. So,
yeah. I'm thinking of my playground right now because you made me think about my playground. One side was all the the sled, the slides and whatever, but there was a wall kind of divided, and a lot of people played tennis or made up some kind of handball, or you played stickball. So you use that wall right as the stickball, and then you had to make up the rules. So let me ask you something: as a parent, as a coach. And this idea about making up rules, which I learned at Titleist, is like really important. And I remember I had like these 4 young lady golfers. They were like 9 and 10, 11. We did obstacle courses. But while I was setting up the obstacle course, I made them go in the hole and they had a putting contest. But they had to make all the rules. I said, here's the hole. You guys have to decide how far it is, what the rules are, whether if you go past it, if you go short, you get a penalty. If you hit the wall, whatever. You have to make the rules. Is that more important just for life, or is it important for kind of building leadership? What is it? What are we really getting out of that?
Yeah, I think you hit it spot on. Not only leadership, but also compromise. Do you know what I mean? Because there's always going to be one kid who wants to take over and tell everyone what to do, and the other kid's like, no, we're gonna figure out this together. Right, we're going to figure out these rules together. So there's like sort of compromise there, but also, there is some good leadership, being able to come up with your own ideas and put them to use. And I love that. I love when kids do that too, because they realize like they might do a round of a game that they made the rules up, and they realize like maybe it didn't work out, and then they change the rules. Like so, they're like it's like changing a law, or something like that. It's like, all right, well, this didn't work, so let's get rid of this, but let's add this rule now. You know what I mean? And so I like that idea too, is that they like kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Like they kind of tinker with it. They got to figure it out. They try different things, which is awesome. But I do it all the time. I let the kids set up their own obstacle course, or make up a game, or sometimes I'll give them parameters. I'll be like, all right, well, I need you to make up an obstacle course, but we have to make sure that we like jump over something, we crawl under something, when you have to run around something. And they're like, all right. And then they'll take out any of the equipment we have and, we'll set it up. And sometimes like they come up with stuff that I would never have come up with. You know what I mean? So it's great. Those guys, they give me ideas. And then same with the games. Like some of the older kids, they'll play a game. They came up with this game one day. It was like sort of like pickle, where you have to run between two cones, and then the guy's going to try to hit you, but like you run sort of to home base and slide and dive. So there was like that component too. And like I was, oh man, that's like such a cool game. And I didn't make it up. It was made up by a couple of 8-year-olds. You know what I mean? So I think there's so much to be said for allowing kids to create games and come up with different rules and variations of games and activities. And it's something that they don't get an opportunity to do hardly at all in their life, but we did it every day. We did it all the time. When we went out and played games, we always, made up rules. Like we used to play, like you were talking about playing stickball. We would play stickball inside the tennis court because the tennis court always had high fences.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like, you're like, that's like literally perfect green monster. You're trying to hit a home run. So, we would come up with all different types of home run derby and stickball, or we played with a small. I remember we had to obviously you could destroy the ball with a tennis racket. So someone found a racquetball racket, and you only could use one hand. And so we were like one time. Yeah, it's like wow. But I remember doing all that stuff as a kid, and you just sort of went with it and did it and had fun and played. But we didn't realize at the time we were developing skills. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I love. For example, I still remember a kid I went to high school. I actually went from like grade school to high school. Mike Sabar, his nickname was KB, and he would command as a kid in elementary. He'd be like, "All right, guys, let's go. 8, you're over here. You're here. Blah blah blah." Right? He ended up being the quarterback in high school. Okay, now he was the man. He was such a great athlete. But when we got the hockey sticks out, that was my turn, right? Like I was the one because it turns into like who are the better players too that are gonna start to rule the roost over there. But I got the best rule ever. I didn't make it up. I was crying, laughing for days when we watched this game. So these kids are playing in the same field that I grew up in. Me and my buddy Steve were watching these kids, and they were playing baseball or like kind of wiffle ball, not wiffle ball, but wiffle ball bat with a tennis ball, and here's the rule. If you hit it and you called cheap before anybody got it, you got a do-over. So like they would just hit it, a ground ball cheap, and then they would argue over whether or not the guy caught it before the kid called cheap or whatever, So anyway, let's dive a little bit deeper into some of these things here, because like, for example, calisthenics. We don't hear that word a lot anymore. People who are listening might be like, well, what do you mean? Are you talking about just jumping jacks and, knee bends, which squats? But what do you mean by calisthenics, putting this back in helping kids with this?
Yeah, I think like sometimes the kids come in and I just we still do like jumping jacks and skips. Like, so it's funny. My high school football coach was old guy. I mean, he coached football for like 50 years, right? And he used to we would go out to practice and he'd make us do stuff like where you had to touch the ground, touch your knees, touch your hips, touch your chest, these bend down, you bend down, you do these other things where you reach in front, reach behind, while you're bent over. We used to look at each other what the hell are these things? He used to make us do up down, you remember up downs, they tell you to up, you stand up and run in place and then drop to the ground. He used to make us do reverse up downs where you fell on your back and you're like, what is going on? So anyways, I was exposed to all that stuff as a kid and as playing football in high school, and he ran I ran track and he was our coach too. And so sometimes he used to make us do log rolls and stuff like that on the ground and just old school stuff and it's funny. I remember buying a book. It was a pre-World War II U.S. Army field manual, and it was all those things were in that manual. All these just different kind of calisthenic exercises. So we'll do those sometimes for warm-ups in our in the facility. You know what I mean? The kids come in and like the same look that I used to give my buddies, you know, they give to each other when they're in here, and I just laugh because I just think it's hysterical. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
and what I try to do too is like calisthenics / you know, gymnastics. They kind of go hand in hand. So that's when we start working on like we work on like doing forward rolls or cartwheels or somersaults, backwards rolls. You know, we have like a crash mat, so like we'll do things like front handsprings. Like the younger kids are really good at it, but even the older kids, like just the act of like pushing your hands into the ground and flipping your body over. And it's funny, like all the kids that like maybe like the middle school kids, they haven't done like a somersault or a cartwheel in a long time, unless they were exposed to some type of gymnastics. But especially the boys who weren't, like they do a forward roll or anything like that, and they get up and they're like, "Oh, I'm so dizzy." And I'm like, they're dizzy because they never do that stuff ever. You know what I mean? They don't do it in gym class. They're not obviously doing it at home. They don't do it for their sport. So they're never exposed to that stuff. So that's the reason why we do it here. We want to make them a better athlete, kind of all around athlete. You want to expand their movement skill set. And so we give them all these different exercises to be able to, I mean, not master, but just learn and get, you know, practice and get better at. So I think for us, it makes, you know, from the youngest kids all the way up and through high school, like it also makes training a lot less more monotonous. You know, we can change and mix and match workouts and warm ups every day. And so, you know, the kids might not get super excited for it, but it definitely keeps them on their toes and changes things up quite a bit, which I like. Cause you know, you've been coaching for a long time. It's like, you can get real bored by doing dynamic warm ups and, you know, different stretch routines. You know, especially if you've been doing it a long time, it can get boring. Maybe not for the kids, but for the coach. You know, you just doing session after session, and it can wear on you. So for us, it's, when I really started getting into that type of stuff, it really changed the game for me as far as coaching. Got really exciting because we're starting to practice all these different movements.
Yeah, give us 3 or 4 because a lot of coaches be like, well, listen, I don't know anything about gymnastics, but what are three really easy, simple ones we can learn pretty quick that are, you know, not going to take a lot of, a course in gymnastics to teach these things. Just 3 or 4 things that you would like to see coaches do with their kids.
Yeah. So for us, I think learning how to fall, especially if you play a sport, you're going to end up on the ground at some point. So, you know, teaching a shoulder roll, front shoulder roll, forward shoulder roll is really good and pretty easy to teach. We start on the ground, like on our knees, and you know, a lot of the kids just do like a side roll when they first start because they just don't know how to do it, and so that's for them. It's the safest way, and then eventually we just work them to get kind of more up on their shoulder, and so you're on one knee, you got to just sort of lean forward and, you know, and drop that shoulder down, and boom. If you do a couple of times, you just got to end up rolling over and onto your butt. So that one's an easy one. And then even a back shoulder roll, like you do, like just swing your legs over your head, and then you just pick a side and want to roll to your left or right, and you just go up over that shoulder. So we do those quite a bit. And then the other one is cartwheel, and everyone thinks like a cartwheel has to be beautiful, but it does not. You know, most of the kids can't get their feet up above their head. They don't even get anywhere close. So it's like sort of like this hands on the ground. They swing their feet up and slide them over. So, and you know, that's really simple. I don't care if they're not great at it. It's just the idea of practicing moving in a different way and trying to get better at that movement as well. So those are probably the three most you know, the ones we do the most in our facility.
Yeah, I like this idea about having these things to kind of mix and match, because it does, I think, and I've heard you talk about it as well. We have to make it fun at that early age. We have to make them feel like your son. He's like, I like going to the gym. My friends are there. If my dad wasn't there, it'd be really good. You know, but no, he was like, oh, you know, he's going to be influenced by the bigger kids and say, yeah, Dad, I want to do that. I've been waiting years to do that. Let's do it. But he enjoys being in there, and that's how we have to make it. So I think having this movement variety and switching it up is important for them not to get bored. So talk to me a little bit about, because it just made me think of this, you know, this structured plyometrics.
Yep.
The routines that we do. How do you do your jumping?
Yeah. So our jumping starts like at the youngest ages, it starts with like we play long. So I give you an example. We have like my kids had these like when they were younger, my wife bought them like a ramp for their bike to jump off of, these like little plastic ramps. And I was like, the moment those guys are old enough, I'm stealing those things and bringing them to the gym. And so, because I could look at that and be like, oh, jumping off a ramp would be great too. So we set up a ramp, and then on the other, there's a little bit of space on the floor, and then we set up like a mat, like a gymnastics mat on the other side. And all we're going to do is run, jump off the ramp, and try to jump as far as we can and land on the mat. So it's like doing a long jump, right? And so we keep moving the mat further away from the ramp, just as the kids get better and better landing. So it's very unstructured. Like you run, just I don't really care if you jump off of 1 foot or 2 feet, and then we're just trying to jump as far as we can. Alternately, we can do, instead of jumping for distance, we can jump for height. So I can set up a hurdle and the kids run up the ramp and try to jump over the hurdle. So like last week, my son and a couple of his buddies were in here, and we just kept going up and up and up and higher. And they finally, one of them made it over like the highest rung, and the place went nuts because all the older kids are watching the younger kids, and so they get into it too, and they're really great with the younger kids. We'll do a lot of jumping and diving where we like jump over like a mat onto a crash pad and maybe try to catch a ball or just do some type of like twist or turn or shoulder roll. So it starts really unstructured. Then we'll do, as the kids get older, we'll work on sort of linking. So I'll do like kind of like a broad jump. And then from a broad jump, they're going to immediately go into like a lateral jump, or they'll immediately go from a broad jump to a vertical jump. Or, like the slant boards, they almost they use like Ninja Warrior, but you can use it for like hockey, jumping back and forth.
Yeah.
Like I like to use those a lot with the like the early middle school, like middle school age kids will like jump off one side, explode like as high as we can in the air, maybe do like a 360 or a 180 and land. So I like to add pieces to the jump. And then but then like you said, eventually when they get into high school, we're going to set up a row of 8 hurdles and do hurdle jumps where we're working on getting either a height where we like singularly height, we're just trying to jump high, or doing like some type of reactive, fast. So it does go from sort of unorganized up through some more organized type training. Like you got to consider too, like when our basketball kids come in, they just had practice. Like I'll tell you, I got a great, like so many kids now train even more so than when I first started. So many kids train in season and still come to the gym. So they'll have practice, and then instead of coming after school, they come at night to get a lift session in. You know what I mean? So I try to just take in consideration what the kids are doing right now at the moment, like what kind of jumps they should be doing, if any jumps at all. If like say they're playing basketball, they just had practice, for 2 hours. We're not going to do a lot of plyometric type stuff, but so I think the kids know the importance of like jumping and how it can improve athletic performance. And a lot of them that have been done through the years, they've done all the different types of jumps that, I've given them. They understand they understand what's happening and why we need to do them. So,
Yeah. I love to, I remember one game. And so one of the things you talked about in your post was tag. And we had Casey Wheel on a couple weeks ago, and he was talking about using these partner drills to really understand, movement and speed and reaction, right? And I remember the game. It was like tag, but you didn't tag the person with your hand. You guys were winging like tennis balls at the kids, or footballs, or whatever, Nerf balls maybe, and they were getting slammed. Like, so they had to sprint down, but then they had to worry about getting hit with the ball, and the other guy was running back, and it was this mayhem. Just talk about the importance of like these kind of games like tags around, building agility.
Yeah. So the great thing about tag, like in my facility, it's small, right? So when we have a game of tag set up, whether it's like hand tag or we use flags to pull, or someone's got like a noodle and they're chasing around everyone and trying to hit them. I think what you get is a lot in a small space. You get a lot of change of direction and really quick like reaction. And so the the ability to find space and the ability to close space is sort of happens a lot faster, right? And you got to make your decisions a lot quicker. Whereas, like, if we went outside and we expanded that area, you're going to have a lot more accelerations, right? Because you get more space now, kids are going to run away. Whereas, like, inside, you're sort of just shuffling or moving in a small area. Now you're outside, you're going to be exposed to more acceleration type work, probably way harder decelerations, like way more intense decelerations. And the ability to find space will be easier, and the ability to close space will probably be harder, right? Because now you're going to, depending on how good of an athlete you are, you're going to sort of run more and run faster and to run kids down. So I love that idea. Like, all right, in a closed space, we're going to work more on reactive ability and sort of like quickness, whereas the open space, we're going to work more linear speed, and we're going to work on getting, creating space and closing speed. So I think there's lots of ways to manipulate the game to what you need, or what you think the kids need, or whatever. Or you can take a game of tag outside and say you were working, speed development or acceleration for that day. You could add that game at the end of your speed work to sort of put it all together and put it in context of like a game or a sport, right? So I love that idea. We have another game like team tag, which I love because nobody's ever out. So you can play this with like kids, younger kids. You have, 5 kids on one side who are like the taggers, and then you have a group of 5 kids inside the playing space. One at a time, you have one kid run out, they got to tag someone, run back, the next kid goes, he's got to tag someone, run back, the next kid goes, and you time it. You time it how long it takes for those 5 kids to tag the other 5. But when you get tagged, you're not out. You just keep playing the game. So no one's ever out. So if you got a kid who's like slower, maybe less athletic, and he's going to get down on himself because he always gets tagged out first, or he gets picked on, that's not the case. If he gets tagged, it's not a big deal because he's still allowed to play in the game. So I love that game because there's no no kids arguing or spazzing out and going crazy about getting out of the game. So it's a good game for like younger type kids.
Yeah, when you got that mix, right?
Yeah, you get the mix. We also play team flag tag, which is kind of cool because you have opposing sides. Say you got 5 kids on one end, 5 kids on the other. We'll put obstacles out so you can run around and sort of get some space between someone. But what I love about that is, like, I'll take the least athletic kid and put him with the stud. You know what I mean? And then the stud becomes sort of like the protector of the kid who's not as athletic, which is nice. You know what I mean? Like, he'll sort of go out of his way to make sure that kid doesn't get his flag pulled, which I love because there's always one kid, right? He just dominates everyone. He can just like do what he wants. So like you sort of constrain that kid and make him have to work harder by protecting, the weakest kid on the team, right? And then that kid gets to stay in the game longer, which is nice. So there's a lot of win-win there. So that's a lot of fun too. I'd probably say our funnest tag game is boulder ball, where we put all the little kids in the middle and we have 2 adults on each end, and we just fire a stability ball back and forth and try to take the kids out one by one. You know what I mean?
Are they having fun or are you having fun?
Yeah. So we got to just make sure that the flooring in that is nice and soft, because every now and then there's always a kid who jumps, right? There's always a kid who jumps, and then the ball will come underneath them and take them out. So it's like, all right, so I usually have to sit the kids down and be like, listen, no jumping. I don't want you to like flip. And then for us as the adults, like I've learned from experience, like, we don't fire the ball as hard as we can. Try to just roll it through so they don't. But it's great. Like, you got this ball chasing after you and the kids are running around and it's just pure chaos. But for them, it's a blast.
Yeah, and like you said we don't wing it at them, but you said you learned by experience, so you definitely you did when you started.
So, what too, like we play pickle. One of the worst things we ever did, I tell people all the time, like when you play pickle, there's always this let's add 2 balls to pickle. So you're throwing 2 balls back and forth. Worst idea you could ever do, because the kids are looking. You have one kid looking one way for a ball, and you have another kid looking the other way for a ball, and they're running down the field towards each other. Boom, we had that happen. So, we don't do 2-ball pickle ever anymore. It's just one, because we've had some couple of collisions. Not bad, but it could have been worse.
Yeah. Jared, let's talk a little bit about sprinting and this idea about long-term athletic development, which I really first dove into when I was working with the Titleist program and doing their junior level program. And they were talking about the windows. And you had said the best age to develop a foundation for speed is ages 7 to 11. And same idea, they don't have to worry about technique, just go all out. That will help. That's where they're gonna now. Is this the same as the windows? Because I know there was some pushback on that over time in terms of that. Is there, can we not develop that speed later on? Just talk to me about that age for developing speed and moving forward.
Yeah, I think it goes along with the same idea as like make sure that the kids are exposed to a wide variety of activities when they're younger, and then speed's one of them. Like get the kids to be able to into movements or activities where they're going to get themselves to top speed, right? And really have to accelerate, really have to put effort and focus and really run as hard as they can. I agree with you. Like, I think you can, obviously you can definitely develop speed later on, but I just think this sets the foundation for speed to be developed at a higher level later on, So, and so my idea is always just like, let's figure out activities that are fun, that the kids will do, that will allow them to reach, give maximal effort to reach top speed and to really go as hard as they can. And like, yeah, it's true. Like we don't really care about the technique. Although we can say stuff like, all right, I want you to run on your toes. I want you to run on your heels. I want you to run with your knees, try to get your knees up as high as you can. I want to, so you can get kids to feel different ways to move or sprint. You know what I mean? I want you to run with your arms straight. Oh, I want you to run with your arms bent. I want you to run with your arms crossed. Doesn't that feel really weird, right? So so we can teach kids, like, see how important it is to use your arms. You know what I mean? So you can manipulate how you sprint and get those kids to have different, learn how it is to move their arms and legs through different kind of unique ranges of motion. So they understand over time how it feels to run the right way, I guess. You know what I mean? But what I always try to do is just like, all right, what can I do to get kids to run top speed that's not, speed work, because they're just going to get bored to death, right? So we've come up with the different ways to do that. One of them, we with our crash mat, right? I know that I can set up like some type of something they have to dive over or jump over. But in order to dive over and jump over that barrier, you got to be going pretty hard. So we get acceleration there. Chasing each other. We do different drills where one kid's laying on the ground on his belly, the other kid's behind him. As they go, they got to chase him down, try to tag him. That old tennis ball drill. I think Mike Boyle was the first one I saw use like the tennis ball drops, or you throw the ball out and they have to chase over after the ball. I mean, we still use that, and the kids go crazy for it. Even high school kids love that drill. You know what I mean? So any type of drill and activity that we had one mats and they broke on me, but they're really smooth and like you can slide on them. So kids used to sprint and like just dive. The first one to slide off the other end onto the floor would win. So the kids would just go all out, 15, 20-yard sprint and then dive across this mat and slide off on the other side. So, right, it looks like fun to everyone else, but I know what I'm seeing is we're getting some really good acceleration work in with the kids. You know what I mean? So, any type of racing, chasing type activity is awesome. Or you want to add a ball to a game, or make it, where they have to like chase something down. Where, like, for example, like, we used to play a game where like, we just call it go deep, like go deep, like in football. Like the kids would run as fast as they could down the field, and we just chuck the ball up, and they have to run it down, whether they caught it or not. Who cares? They're going all out again. So that's some of the stuff we do more in the summer, when we could go outside a little bit. And that's like a lot of the stuff we did during COVID, when we were stuck outside for all that time, which was, in my opinion, it was like one of the best for me. Like as a coach in creativity, was one of the best times, like for best times of my life, just coming up to do when you couldn't go inside the gym.
Yeah, very cool. Let's just finish up with, let's take your son. He's 15, right? Your son? Okay.
Yep.
So he's obviously been exposed to all of this for a while. Now he's hitting the gym. Where do you feel like, not that we're going to stop it, these type of things, like the tag and some of the games he's bought in, he's going to start strength training, but we don't want to lose any of that athletic ability as well, or that movement capacity or quality. What's the plan for somebody that's like 15, starting to lift, getting away from, because there's only so much time in the day. What do you see for the plan for the next like 3 or 4 years for your son in training wise?
I think for him, it's going to be just because he plays multiple sports. I think for him, he just really he really loves to lift, right? That's the thing that makes him feel the best. So I just want to make sure that playing lots of sports, you can, although it's good for you, as you get older, you can get beat up. So obviously staying mobile, implementing those type of activities into his training routine. And also like it's real easy in the winter time here to not do speed work, especially in a small facility. It's so easy to just be like, all right, come in, stretch, and go start crushing weights. You know what I mean? Like it's all my high school boys. They're just, a lot of them are just meatheads. They just want to lift. You know what I mean? So it's really important that we continue to even if it's just a couple of short accelerations prior to a workout, just keeping that in your program year round, I think is really important. So for him, if he decides he wants to play a college sport, that's going to be up to him. So if that happens, maybe we'll start to whittle down the sport that he's playing, and then continue to I think he's a pretty good sized kid too. So I think he'll hit a point. I think I got to explain to him, like, there's a point where you get to where strength is enough. Like you have enough strength. You don't have to keep grinding and try to get higher and higher, because it's just going to have no return. And that's there as we go summertime. Like I love getting those kids out. That's where we really start to ramp up the athleticism type stuff. So we get out and do not only traditional speed work, like traditional strength and conditioning, but that's when I get those kids involved in playing more games again. You know what I mean? Because obviously the younger kids are in the gym. That's part of their workout when they're at my facility, but the older kids probably don't get to do that as much. So in the summer, that's when we get out. We'll play tag. We'll play, games like speedball, open field type games where you have to pass and catch and run and try to score and beat each other. Like I love that stuff, that type of activities for them. Also getting them, we do a fair amount of the boys more, but even some of the girls will do like grappling activities or push pull, or we got these different bags that we have for football. We can use those things to kind of put. I think it's not so much like learning how to when you push and pull against another body, you kind of feel where they're going. Like you have to kind of fight your force with their force and feel where they're going. So that's a really great activity for any athlete. So we do a lot of that stuff outside as well. So I think it's interesting. He's really into it, and I have an 8th grader that's coming up, and he's sort of coming out of that fun phase, and he's getting more serious about sports. So now he's transitioning into the strength training part. You know what I mean? And he's a little different. Like my older guy's more of a grinder. Like he works real hard, and he kind of knows what he's good at and what he's not. Whereas the younger one's a little more. He's probably more skilled movement wise, and so things come a little bit easier for him. So he might need maybe a little bit more nudge to strength train. Who knows? He likes it. He does it. But I think it's funny that you get 2 different personalities and 2 different types of kids and 2 different types of athletes and 2 different types of bodies. So it's fun trying to look at and figure out what the future is for those guys. And then at the same time, right, not push them too much and make them hate you. Right.
Yeah.
So it's a thin line to walk, I think, for a parent and / coach.
Yeah, absolutely. Jared, let's just, before I let you go, I want to remind everybody, you have a product out. First of all, if you don't want to spend any money, follow Jeremy on Twitter, because you'll always get some great nuggets on there. He's got a bunch of articles on Simply Faster that we'll link to. Jeremy, though, you just came out with a product with that you did in conjunction with Pat Beath, right?
Yeah, so that we did one. I've done two. So I get Pat did one. I did basically it was really just like a overall view of long-term athletic development, like how I set it up. So it's like ideas for warm-ups, ideas for gymnastics, like we were talking about, ideas for speed. Basically just a kind of overall rundown of how I run my youth athletic development program at my facility. So I did that with Pat, and I recently just did one where it's like more of like just basically it was my greatest hits as far as like what we do with the games that we do at our facility. You know what I mean? So
was that more of a master class or something that you did? Like
yeah,
it was
master class. Yeah. So it was just kind of like an overview of phys ed and physical education, where we're at, and things, different ideas of how to set up training and what are the major obstacles that you're going to face when working with kids. And then the idea was like, all right, what are some of the things that are easy to implement with athletes, basically all the way from the youngest up through college age kids. So
yeah,
it was a tough one because you're talking for an hour about the games that you play at the facility, and I try to cover a wide range of things that we did through the years. So you can't really touch on too many things at once because you're trying to cover so many, like such a wide age range. But it's fine. I got more stuff coming, and yeah, I think Instagram and Twitter and all that stuff, I put that stuff up all the time as well. So there's plenty to learn and plenty to discuss and talk about as well.
absolutely. Jeremy, thank you so much for doing this. I was looking forward to it. You're the man. Love what you're doing up there. Had so much fun in my visit. So hopefully I can head out there in the near future and come up and visit you again. So thanks again, buddy. Really appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me on. It was a lot of fun.
All right, that's going to do it for episode 356 of the Strength Coach Podcast. The show notes are located at continuefit.com or strengthcoachpodcast.com. Don't forget, you can try the new strengthcoach.com out for 7 days for free. Check it out at strengthcoach.com. Special thanks to Chris Parr and the folks over at Perform Better. Guys, online sale right now, 50% off a bunch of stuff, including bumper plates, kettlebells, and dumbbells. So much stuff. Check it all out at performbetter.com. The one-day seminars continue. The last one is in Chicago, April 22nd. Also, the summit dates for Orlando, Chicago, Long Beach, and Providence are all set. Check it all out at performbetter.com. Thanks to Coach Boyle and Jeremy Frisch for sharing their insights and philosophies into the world of strength and conditioning, performance enhancement, and training young athletes. You can check out the anniversary interview I did with Coach Boyle, 40 Mistakes, 40 Years. There is a link to access that at strengthcoachpodcast.com. You just got to sign up for the newsletter and you'll get access to it. Thanks to Sumit Seth and Naamly, helping build relationships through personalized communication so your members stay longer and pay longer. Go to Naamly.com, use the referral code StrengthCoach to get started on a free 30-day trial. Thanks to AG1 from Athletic Greens. Visit athleticgreens.com/strengthcoach to get your free year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs today. That's going to do it for this episode. My name's Anthony Renna. Thanks for listening, and I'll speak to you next time.